listening to Hotel Bar Sessions, the podcast where three philosophers sit down at the end of a long conference day to chop it up at the hotel bar, which, as we all know, is where the real philosophy happens.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Hotel Bar Sessions. I'm Bob Vallier, that rhymes with queer, and no, I've never heard that before ever in my life. And I'm here alone today, drinking from my minibar in the hotel room. Jen and Lee are off doing their own thing. So this is a special minibar episode, something we do in between seasons. And today, initially at least, I'm thinking about New Year's resolutions, in part because I'm recording this at the end of December. I'm about to keep my New Year's resolution this year, which was simply to keep my shit together. It's been challenging because, as you may remember, on January 20th, Donald Trump was inaugurated president, marking the first time in history that the president's age was greater than his IQ. And it's been a real challenge keeping my shit together ever since then. But I think I'm going to do it. And that's great because it'll be the second year in a row that I've kept my New Year's resolution. Last year, in 2024, my New Year's resolution was simply to lose 20 kilos because my friend Karthik said I was fat. And it's true, I was getting a little bit doughy. So I had a secret strategy, a two-part strategy to lose those 20 kilos that I'm going to share with you right now. Now, the weight loss industry does not want you to know this. And normally I charge $19.95 on Instagram for this information, but I'm giving it to you for free today. The two-part strategy was this. Part one, back in February of 2024, I was very, very, very sick. I had a bad case of pneumonia. I coughed so hard that my sciatica snapped back into place, and I lost about 5 kilos. I don't really recommend this. It was not a lot of fun. The second part of the strategy was even less fun. Back in October of 2024, I got hit by a car. Well, technically I hit the car, but that's a matter for the lawyers to work out. And in my memory of the event, I was, like many of you, dear listeners, still high on Olympic fever. So in my memory of the event, I did a double somersault and a triple backflip, and if there'd been a high bar like in the pole vault, I would have cleared that because, my thing's not that big. Remember that guy? And then I stuck the landing. But that's not at all what happened. It was wham, bam, no thank you, ma'am, and 0 points from the Russian judge. I was there on my back, my feet and legs were locked in place in the air, and it was just like you would see in a film. The ringing in the ears, the inability to hear anything beyond that ringing, eventually some noise fading in, faces coming toward me, coming into focus, people coming to help me. I was taken to the hospital. I had an MRI, x-rays. Miraculously, nothing was damaged, nothing was broken. One tiny bone in my left hand was fractured. And there are 27 bones in the human hand. 28 when I'm bored. But I was let go the next day. I was unable to do anything on my own. Well, almost anything. Both of my hands were fused shut, so I couldn't even open the medication that I had to take 4 times a day. Happily, my left hand worked a little bit, so there were some private ablutions that I could take care of without having to embarrass my friends, who were coming over 4 times a day to make sure that I took the medication and make sure that I was eating. One thing that was really a powerful reminder of this accident was the beauty of friendship and how valuable it is in times of need like this. But also, a second thing that I was reminded of was a lot of the texts that I had read as a graduate student about the body, and in particular, the body in pain. I spent most of my philosophical career working on Merleau-Ponty, who you probably know offers us a phenomenology of embodiment in his great text, The Phenomenology of Perception. And his body in that text is an entirely normative body, an able-bodied body. Yes, he has the famous analysis of the phantom limb, the body that is missing an arm or a leg, but still experiences the arm or leg as if it were there. But apart from that, his body is entirely able-bodied. There's no discussion of the disabled body in Merleau-Ponty's work. Happily today, many contemporary thinkers have marshaled the resources from Merleau-Ponty's work and the work from disability studies to offer us a theory of the disabled body. I was also reminded of Elaine Scarry's great book called The Body in Pain, which I had read as a graduate student, but related to only in the abstract, only in the theoretical plane. In part because I've been very lucky in my life. I've never broken anything. I've never been in a serious accident before. The only time I was ever hospitalized was when I was 4 to have my tonsils removed. And the only thing I remember about that is getting lots of ice cream and popsicles. But I'd never really experienced pain before, not like the way I was experiencing it back in October and November of 2024 after the accident. The pain of the impact, first of all, but also the slow, dull pain of recovery. I was very limited in what I could do. As I said earlier, my hands were fused shut, so I couldn't open medication. I couldn't shave. I couldn't brush my teeth. I couldn't prepare food. And again, it was a great value that I had my friends coming over to help me with these things. Well, some of them anyway. They couldn't shave me. But in any case, I was also reminded of Heidegger's analysis of tools in being and time, the kind of being they have at Zuhandenheit and Vorhandenheit. They're available to hand or they're ready to hand. And he says there that only when the tool is broken does it reveal its equipmental context. And I started to think, well, what about when the hand is broken or unable to do what it normally does? A whole new system of relations is revealed to us, relations that are always operative, but that we don't pay attention to, we take for granted because they work. And it's only when they don't work that we start to notice them. The way my hand has to reach for food or open the tap to pour water, things that I could no longer do for myself. Now, I want to be clear that I don't think of myself as disabled or handicapped. I am, at most, temporarily inconvenienced by all of this. And I'm still recovering. I still have some mobility issues with my right arm, and I still have some neuropathy in my left leg. And especially on a cold, wet, wintry day, they really hurt. I feel like I'm the old man who can predict the weather now because of this. But in any case, the way in which the world was presenting itself to me when I was in pain, when my hands were in their least abled position and capacity, the way the world was presenting itself to me was very, very different. The things that I had taken for granted suddenly became very apparent to me. Now, I live in Paris. Just the fact of public transportation for people with mobility issues is already problematic. People do not help the handicapped here. The public transportation system is not set up to welcome people with disabilities or to aid them in getting places. So when I had to go to physical therapy, it was a real challenge. I remember one time in particular, this is more a story about Parisians than anything else. I had to get on the bus and they had just changed the fares. I had a euro 20 in my hand, but it was a euro 40 now. So I had to get another 20 cents out of my pocket. And with my hands in the way they were, trying to get into my pockets was a challenge. The bus driver was very mean. He kept saying, it's a euro 40. I'm like, I know. I'm going to get you another 20 cents. Hang on. He's like, it's a euro 40. I said, I know. Can you see my hand is broken here? And he's like, well, you don't have a sign on your head that says broken hand. And I said, I don't see a sign on your head that says you're an asshole, but here we are. Miraculously, he didn't kick me off the bus, and I did get to physical therapy that day. But these are the kinds of things that really become apparent when you're in pain or disabled in certain ways. The third thing that I was reminded of, or really not reminded of, but had the capacity to understand in a new way, was finitude. Right? We can talk about the body, we can talk about the disabled body, we can talk about the body in pain, but what pain really revealed to me was my own bodily finitude. I'm not infinite, I'm not invincible, I'm not going to live forever. But those are things that we want to ignore, and we do so through exercise or ingesting vitamins, or taking healthy hikes or whatever. We try to cover our faces with all sorts of creams and ointments to stave off the ravages of age. But we're all going to die. And you know what? It's kind of funny. That's what really became apparent to me in this episode of Pain and Temporary Disablement. Finitude is hilarious. If we're lucky, we're going to die through slow degeneration. And it will be hilarious if you have the right attitude about it. And this is what Nietzsche means when he's talking about amor fati, that the only appropriate response to pain, to finitude, to decay, to death is laughter, a kind of derisory, mocking laughter. And so, as a result, during my convalescence, what I did mostly, aside from thinking about philosophy, which I couldn't access, by the way, I couldn't open my books and I couldn't Google anything because I couldn't type. I had to use voice to text. And when you try to look up Martin Heidegger by voice to text on Google, you end up with martini headgear, which reminds me I need to refill my drink. But in any case, finitude is funny. Finitude is the source of comedy. And so I spent a good part of my convalescence just writing jokes about the finitude of the body, about decay, about degeneration, about age, and about laughing at death. That's why I think that the real point of comedy is to laugh at ourselves, to laugh at our own finitude. Forget about punching down on other groups just for a laugh. The real source of comedy is pain, is finitude, is decay and degeneration. So that's what I spent a good several months thinking about until finally the physical therapy started to work. The pain subsided mostly. I still have some. Mobility returned mostly. I'm still getting better. One of the worst things about recovery, especially the drugs I had to take to help with the pain, was that I was constantly battling constipation. So I've been popping laxatives like Tic Tacs. And I see that my time here on the Minibar is almost up. And, well, I really need to go. So I want to leave you with this, dear listeners. Whether it be physical or emotional, pain opens the world to us in new ways. And we should try to embody what it says to us in new ways when we can. We're all going to die, and it's not so bad. To death, I say, not only not today, sir, but ha-ha, I laugh at you. So, Happy New Year, everyone. Enjoy the Minibar episodes. We'll see you on the next season of Hotel Bar Sessions.